Hello everybody in YouTube land and welcome to another deck guide. Today, I want to welcome you to Tommy Muldoon's Clue Emporium. Wow, let's dive right in. So, in this Tommy Muldoon deck built by Travis, Tommy seeks to get clues while killing enemies. With the help of his allies, his events, and his 3-book, this Tommy Muldoon deck fills the flex role nicely. So Tommy has that usual style where he likes to soak and then, shoot things with Becky and then maybe also pick up a few clues in the process. This deck still lives in that space. It's just more heavy towards the clue side of the whole thing. So Tommy's going to be looking to get more clues than he would normally do, and we're going pretty hard on that, while also still keeping the fist up high. This is a gorgeous flex deck that Travis built that I'm very excited to share with you all today. So why don't we dive in and keep this going. So these are all the expansions that are required for this set. As I have done previously, the Dunwich and Pat Carcosa are now so long in this grouped style that we are just linking those together. If you don't know, Forgotten Age was also recently just announced officially as the new release format. So those are also going to be changing pretty soon. I think it's aiming around February to start coming out, which is pretty exciting. It's a great campaign. If you haven't picked it up yet, you should definitely pick it up. But yeah, this one's actually not too crazy on random packs. It just needs Threads of Fate and Boundary Beyond from the from Forgotten Age, but otherwise it's just boxes and deluxe sets or starter decks. I think it's pretty good for that. And there are actually also some changes too. The Scarlet Keys one, as we'll get to later, isn't necessary. This could be just something from the Nathaniel Cho deck as well, which we'll get to in the slides. Don't you worry, we'll cover that here. So, here's the deck list. You can find a link to the actual ARKHAM DB link deck list down below if you wanted to see that and follow along with me as we go through the cards. Or just, you can close out the video now if you got the deck link and you'd be like, got it. Gonna clone that deck and put that in my own collection. So, this is a deck, as I said, built by Travis, so we're not really looking at the level 0 version here. But the level 0 actually should be pretty easy to get going, because you can have basically, Evidence is level 0, Look What I Found is level 0, Greta is level 0. Michael Lee could be another ally, maybe medical student to fill the hole in there, or something else. Lesson Learned also could just be a frickin' teddy bear if you wanted it to. Yeah. Otherwise, though, the deck is pretty straightforward. As you can see, there's a lot of experience that goes into the 2 Michael Lees. When I asked Travis, has Travis had any decks for me to showcase in a video, he said, do you want a Michael Lee deck? Because I got 2 of them. So he's like, how do you feel about Michael Lee? And I'm like, I love Michael Lee. He's great. So as you can see here, we're going to go through all the cards individually, but there's a lot of focus is going into our allies, which it should in Tommy Muldoon. However, with that all said, you might want to be a little bit aware of rookie mistake here. If you haven't seen it yet, maybe if you have both Michael Lee and Greta Wagner in play, maybe only put your damage on Greta just in case you don't want to lose both of them. But let's get into the individual cards here as we kind of just pick this deck apart a little bit. All right. The 3 allies in our deck all work well with Tommy Muldoon's ability, but provide additional goodness on top of that. So Tommy Muldoon's ability, when an asset you control is defeated by damage and or horror, you get resources on it equal to, let's just go back over here. When it's defeated, you just gain X resources, where X is the total amount of damage and horror on that asset. So they all have great numbers for that. They all soak very well for Tommy's ability. Notably, Madame Lebranche, I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me just read what's on here. So, both Greta and Michael give +1 fist and +1 book. With both out, it puts our fist to 6 and our book to 5. Those are really nice numbers for a Flex Investigator. Now, I know what you're saying. That costs 9 resources. Yeah, it costs 9 resources. Luckily, Tommy Muldoon has good resource generation built into his kit. It does require a bit of an upfront cost, admittedly, but this deck is a Travis deck, so it definitely has resource generation in it. Greta is going to provide clues for defeating enemies, and Michael rewards you for investigating and makes killing enemies easier. They pair together really nicely. So for an example of this, you're going to use Michael Lee to investigate, grab a clue off a location, put some evidence on Michael Lee. Then you defeat an enemy using the evidence from Michael Lee to basically just get a vicious blow. And then that enemy had 2 health, you killed it, then you discover a clue with Greta Wagner. It's like a machine that just like, it's like kunk, 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 kunk. Just getting clues, rewarding you for getting clues, killing enemies, and then rewarding yourself with an additional clue on top of it. Madame Lebranche, she has a nice use of providing resources when your pool is empty and cards if your hand ever empties. It's very likely that you're going to run out of resources in this deck, and Madame Lebranche is a great like placeholder for a Greta or a Michael, as you just like try to save some resources up for them in the process. So for example, if Madame Lebranche is in play, you then play down to 0 resources and you get an additional resource out of it. It's just a really good economy, especially when this deck's going to probably bottom out of resources pretty quickly. In addition, Madame Lebranche provides a good resource return rate with Tommy's ability if you do get her killed. She gives you a profit for a very low amount, so 2 cost, and if she leaves play with 2 damage and 2 horror, you get 4 resources back. That's a really good return rate. So as you can see, all these allies are nice. Madame Lebranche, I'm pretty sure, is one of. Look at that. I know the deck list. But they are very functional allies that you're going to want to play. But because we're running 2 of Greta and Michael, if one dies, just get the resources, turn them into bullets for Becky, and then play a new one. It's pretty sick. All right. Look what I found in Scene of the Crime are the first of our 4 cards that help Tommy's Clue Emporium open for business. As Travis said, as Travis titled this deck, this is a Clue Emporium deck, so we are going to be focusing a lot on getting clues. We're going to be doing that beyond just basic investigating. We're looking to compress the tempo, compress the actions required to get clues and come out with positive tempo ahead of it. So look what I found does a great job of allowing us to get some burst clues when we fail an investigation against a location. Odds are that'll happen, so it'll be nice to get some clues out of it in the process. Early on, this can be used pretty effectively on a 3-shroud location, and then later on in the game, when your book's a bit higher, this works very well on a 4-shroud location. Scene of the Crime is a great clue-getting card in our deck because when we or a teammate at our location draw an enemy, our clue potential explodes. Scene of the Crime is the first part of that. So, Scene of the Crime works very well. You get the clue, kill the enemy, and then get more clue. It's just very nice. It's also testless. Testless clues are very, very efficient because you don't have to fail. You don't have to like make a test. You just get the clues. Lesson Learned and Evidence are the next 2 cards in our clue getting package. Lesson Learned is obviously a great card for Tommy because you'll have the allies in play to soak for this, or you also have enough potential soak that you can have Tommy take the damage for the attack. So Lesson Learned fast, play after you take damage from an enemy attack, discover 2 clues at your location. It's a very, very, very nice ability for this deck. We're still a Guardian deck with guns, so we'll be killing enemies, and luckily Evidence is a great way to kill enemies but also get clues at the same time. So imagine this. Imagine the turn where you draw an enemy, play Scene of the Crime, get punched by that enemy, then kill that enemy to grab a clue with Evidence and Greta Wagner. Wow. So, like, you draw the enemy, you play Scene of the Crime, you grab 2 clues. I mean, there's going to be a lot of clues on this location for this to work, okay? This is like a 6 to 8 shroud clue location. This actually, admittedly, is a very good flex deck, so there probably will be 6 clues on locations when you play this deck. You draw the enemy, play Scene of the Crime, you get 2 clues. You do a basic investigate for your next action. You grab a clue with that. The enemy punches you, and you discover 2 more clues at your location. You're at 5. You kill the enemy. You grab a clue with Evidence and Greta Wagner. That's 7 potential clues in Magical Christmas Land. Mind you, this is Magical Christmas Land. But when Tommy Muldoon's Clue Emporium opens for business, we are living in Magical Christmas Land, and it's great. There's a lot of clue potential in this deck. So, like, even though in that Evidence, that example I had there, that with Evidence, Scene of the Crime, Lesson Learned, Greta Wagner, that's 7 clues at once. Just imagine that spread out, right? Like, even though 7 clues at once is impressive, spreading it out, it becomes even, like, just more efficient, and you're likely to stay ahead of the game enough to just absolutely dominate. These 3 cards provide our deck with some resource and card economy. This deck is expensive, as I said earlier, so we're going to be wanting to make sure we can play cards and draw cards to, in turn, let us play more cards. Emergency cash speaks for itself. We want to get money, and that gives us money. Glory gives us cards when we defeat enemies, which is what we're going to be doing anyway. And if we don't need cards, this commits for 2 book, which helps us get more clues. So Glory is like always on in this deck. It's really nice. If our hand is absolutely loaded, we can turn this into basically a perception that doesn't replace itself. And if our hand is empty and we kill an enemy, this is just more cards. Last card here is Motivational Speech. This was actually a card I changed from Travis's original deck. Travis said, I didn't look at the Scarlet Keys cards, so you should check it out to see if there was anything that potentially could work. And I thought Motivational Speech was probably like the best option that fit in this deck. However, this could easily be a stand together, because that's what it was in Travis's original deck, and it's still just money. Stand together is nice because you can also use it for things like Look What I Found, and I believe Lesson Learned costs 2. It costs 1. That card's cheap as hell. Scene of the Crime, I think, costs 2. Let's go back in time. Yeah, Scene of the Crime costs 2. And Motivational Speech has a positive where it lets you get out your allies quick without... It's also a parlay, so in the cases where you want to avoid an attack of opportunity, Motivational Speech can do that for you. I think it's a good card. I think it's good in this deck. But as I said, if you don't have Scarlet Keys, but you have the Nathaniel Cho deck, just put those stand togethers in there. It's a great option either way. These are guns. They shoot. I'm going to say more, even though I really shouldn't have to because they're guns and they shoot, but we'll talk about this. Because this is a more flex-focused Tommy, our damage output isn't on par with a full Monster Slayer build. That is just the reality of the situation. However, we do still have good damage output with these 3 weapons. So Becky would be a great card if we weren't using our ability for resources. And if we are, we have the Derringer and the Automatic to use in combination with Michael Lee to remove enemies from the universe. So when I say that we don't have like Monster Slayer output, that means we can hit 6 damage a turn, but we're not really like going too far past that. And we would rather spend our turn like killing a small enemy and getting clues in the process. Albeit, Evidence does care about 4 health enemies, but you don't need to kill all the 4 health at once, I'm pretty sure. I'm not like on the ball with Guardian cards. Sorry, Guardian cards, that's just how it is. But it's these weapons are all level 0. You could upgrade them if you want to, like especially if you start getting the experience past the point that we are at this deck. But Becky is also just a really good build in Tommy decks, and if you don't need the resources, putting ammo on Becky is always a nice time. I'm pretty sure you can also split it? We'll see when we get to Tommy's deck. I'm pretty sure we can. Alright, our skill package is nice and simple. Resourceful can grab the 18 Derringer, Madame Lebranche, Look What I Found, and Take Heart. It also has 2 very relevant symbols, Book and Fist, so we're likely to get the card back when we want it back. So even though the targets in our deck are pretty small for Resourceful, you could change this out if you want to. But grabbing a Madame Lebranche is good, grabbing a Look What I Found is good, grabbing a Take Heart is very nice, and also grabbing a Derringer can be useful if you need a gun. I think that it has its hits, and it still is going to be very relevant, and it also has the skills that matter, so I think Resourceful is very nice here. Take Heart is additional economy, both card draw and resources. It'll likely be easy to know when you're going to be able to use Take Heart, like on, say, a Foot Test, or Shroud 8, for some reason. So aim to play it accordingly, and then there's just Take the Initiative, which is just a really, really, really good card. That's the deck. The only 2 cards that we did not talk about here were Charisma, which is pretty straightforward. You're going to want to have 2 allies in play. If you can afford a second Charisma, this deck goes up in value because then you can have Greta, Madame, and Michael Lee in play, and that's really nice. And then the other card we did not talk about was Prepared for the Worst, which is kind of just helps you find your weapons, which is good because you're going to want to find your weapons. So Tommy Muldoon's abilities, you can see with Becky, each resource gained from Tommy Muldoon may instead be placed on Becky as ammo. So yeah, with Tommy's thing, you can also then, I believe, mix and match the resources you get. Overall, this deck is a Tommy deck. A Tommy deck is very simple. It has its goal. Play your soak, get your soak killed, get resources from your soak. While your soak is alive, benefit from your soak as much as you can, and then maybe shoot some enemies in the head with Becky when you can have the moment. And this deck is like that. It's just we're going to be getting clues in the process. I think Travis built a really nice Flex Tommy deck, and I hope you enjoyed it as a viewer. If you did enjoy it, let me know in the comments what you think of the deck, and what investigators we should maybe try to build some decks for this next. And also, in the meantime, why don't you consider joining our Patreon if you want to support the channel. $3 a month is the lowest level. You get access to 2 deck lists each month. And then you can also support the channel, of course, by liking the video, subscribing to the channel if you've not subscribed, and also just, joining our Discord channel to come chat with all of our awesome fans and us as well. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this deck list and found it helpful. Have a great one, and as always, GG's.